audience. We do have one more session here, so I'm hosting a panel all about how to make the UK a health tech titan. So the UK has enormous potential. Our diverse population and healthcare system mean it's an ideal location for gathering worldwide evidence, and we've seen some great examples of this. So I'm delighted to be joined by Chi Onwurah, who's the MP for Newcastle upon Tyne and the chair of the Science, Technology and Innovation Select Committee, and also Jacques Carolan, who's a program director at ARIA, the Advanced Research and Invention Agency. Now, today we're going to talk about how the country can build on all the promise we've seen here today and really kind of become like a health tech leader. So, super quick intro. Maybe, Jacques, you could start by just explaining really quickly what ARIA is, because maybe people might not be aware of.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a program director at ARIA. Excuse me. So we are a R&D funding agency, publicly funded, which is designed to fund research into areas that seem speculative, but if true, would be transformational on a global scale. And specifically, I'm leading a program around precision neurotechnologies. How can we develop next generation neurotechnologies to treat a broad array of neurological and neuropsychiatric conditions, and how can we deliver them to people at scale?
And Chi, can you just tell us quickly what your kind of work for the Science and Technology Innovation Committee actually involves?
All right, so yes, I'm the MP for Newcastle Central and West, and I chair the Science, Innovation and Technology Select Committee. So in the role of Select Committee, every department has a Select Committee, and the role of the Select Committee is to scrutinize the work of the department, so Science, Innovation and Technology here, in the public interest. But additionally, because science, innovation and technology have been around long, the department itself has only existed for 2 years, we have a cross-governmental role in terms of looking at the evidence and the scientific evidence, particularly that is used for government decisions. And this government, the Labour government, elected in July, has made put a huge emphasis on the role of technology in transforming government and public services more generally, including the NHS, an NHS fit for the future, and also in driving growth and long-term sustainable growth, which happens across our entire country, including our regions. And it's just as the MP for Newcastle, which has a fantastic health care centre and medical teaching hospitals and lots of innovation, I'm particularly interested in ensuring that innovation and growth and health tech thrives across the country.
So what puts, I mean, we've seen a lot of it today on the various stages, but like, Chi, maybe starting with you, what puts the UK in a good position to become a health tech leader, to grow the health tech industry in this country?
I would start by saying that, and I haven't been here all day, but I'm sure we are a health tech leader. I mean, we have a significant health tech sector. We have some of the best research and science in the world. And we saw, I mean, I won't go through the list of everything that's been invented in the UK, but I'll just say the words COVID and CRISPR and the Genome Project. So we have got a real base of foundational science. And in addition to that, we have the NHS, our National Health Service, which is a huge opportunity when it comes to the understanding, the lifetime understanding of patients and their conditions and their treatments. And if you go to the US, for example, the health records are really fragmented. You know, it's multiple private sector companies. We have, though we don't have successful electronic records yet, we have one NHS, which also acts as if you like, a huge market, an internal market, where we can drive through innovation. So those are. And I'll also say we've got a government which is really committed to science, innovation and technology and to well-being. And we've got the difference which having a healthy workforce across the country will make to our economic growth is something that's recognised both by the Department of Health and by the Department of Work and Pensions. So those are real, and so just to finish, we've obviously got great, fantastic innovators, and in the City of London, we have some of the deepest capital markets in the world, even if they're not always focused on driving growth and innovation. So those are real strengths that we have. To build on those strengths, I'll just say say quickly, there are challenges, and as I'm sure you're aware, in drawing innovation through the NHS. It's a very big bureaucracy, and it's overwhelmed in doing its day job. And then there are also regulatory challenges, and leaving the European Union and the regulatory environment for clinical trials. I can go into that in more detail, but we've obviously got challenges, but we're in a really good leading position to grow from here.
Jacques, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'd just kind of double click on the talent element. Of course, we've got 4 of the top 10 universities in the world, particularly in the kind of neurotech space that I think about. Building these technologies is really hard. You need to bring together clinicians, neurologists, neurosurgeons. You need electrical engineers. You need molecular biologists. You need all of these folks speaking the same language, and we are world leaders along all of those directions. But I'll maybe highlight a kind of slightly underappreciated element of that, which is actually how entrepreneurial that talent is. I spent a bunch of time on the road when I first joined ARIA chatting with folks, and there are so many people with incredible ideas, and it doesn't fit in with traditional academia, it doesn't fit in with large-scale industry, and they're looking for places to go with it. We're funding a number of teams. One of them has developed an incredible gene therapy for the brain, spun out of a university lab, and we're really providing that first bit of funding that allows them to do it. So it's that combination of entrepreneurial talent, and I hope that ARIA can be that kind of activation energy for those incredible people.
So I think the reason you looked at me when you said electrical engineer, because I am an electrical engineer by background. I spent 20 years working in electrical engineering before coming into Parliament. But I'll say that the only thing I would say, the main that has inspired me as much as electrical engineering did, as a kid, which is why I chose it, is bioengineering. I mean, the opportunity that is to be an enabling and transformative technology, and the strengths that the UK has in it. I spoke at SynBioBeta, which is the world's largest bioengineering today bioconference, and I bumped into so many people from Newcastle there. It was like all these startups and researchers and innovators who were there as well. So, and obviously from Cambridge and Oxford and universities across the country. So, yeah, we do have talent, and we do have a real base in the emerging technologies.
Chi, you mentioned the kind of opportunity offered by the NHS and this kind of not centralised, but unified healthcare system, and the opportunities that offers for researchers who kind of really want to get into that data. Like, what's the role? Like, how should the government work with private companies to ethically, safely, responsibly make use of that opportunity, or at least enable them to tap into that data, while also ensuring that the NHS gets something back from it?
Well, I think that's a question which a series of governments, conservative governments, have sort of been grappling with for 10, 15 years now, and some of us are familiar with the traumatic failure, which was care.data, which was an attempt, because we don't have consistent electronic health records, and unless you have those, then the ability to share and monitor and drive innovation is much reduced. And we are developing and building electronic health records, and Wes Streeting, the Secretary of State, is setting out, so this is really important, setting out, standards and expectations around the format, simple thing like it has to be a cyclical format, but also how it can be used. And I think to your point, people are very nervous about their health data, and they've been burnt before. But the opportunity of not having to, if you're in emergency care and you don't have to explain what all your previous conditions are, that is a huge win. So I think what Wes is doing, and we've got the data use and access and use bill, which sets out some of this, is to set standards and make sure that the use of that data is for genuine scientific research, to work with private sector research and companies, but to ensure that there are safe and trusted environments in which research can take place. I'm not saying that we're there yet.
I'm interested in your take on this, Jacques, as well, but Chi, do you think that data that's based on public health data should be then available to the public, should be public access, should be open access, should be free to use after the fact the research has been published? I think that's a big problem.
I think two things. I think people should have, I believe generally people should have access and control of their own data, and I think the NHS app is making that more of a reality, and I think that sort of helps give people trust that the system is working for them when they have control and access to their health data. I think in terms of the public access for the sort of the dividends of that research, I think there needs to be a return to the public. I would like to see that involve, a financial return as well as a kind of open basis for future innovation. I'm not in the contractual negotiations which are taking place at the moment, but I think we've got to make sure that there is a return to the public for all the work that's gone in, and also to keep and support public trust.
Jacques, I'm interested you've got anything.
But yeah, I think there's a huge role for private organisations in working with the NHS. But actually, I think it's highly valuable if actually NHS folks are leading. I'll give an example. So we're funding ARIA's first ever clinical trial, which is a collaboration between, in my eyes, one of the leading brain-computer interface companies in the world, based over in the US, who are developing a ultrasound system to treat neuropsychiatric disorders. And they're actually partnering with a team based out in Romford, a neurosurgeon there, to run the first clinical trial of this anywhere in the world. As a footnote to this, they actually found each other through us, which is pretty cool. We basically set up this kind of, what you call like a matchmaking site. It's kind of like a dating site for scientists. And they found each other. So they're running the first one ever. But critically, on the ethics side, it's led by the surgeon. So all of the necessary patient engagement has been done. All of the regulation has been done. It's really bringing the NHS know-how. So I think there's a huge opportunity for that collaboration.
And I think it's also worth just remembering also that DeepMind and AlphaFold and the advances that have been made through that, much of that is publicly available, and that is a great example of open research returning huge continuing benefits, I think, to the research community altogether.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what you often see or sometimes see is, research being funded at university level and then spin-out companies being founded, and then, maybe the university gets a cut of that, but actually the granting bodies that funded the research in the first place perhaps don't see the return on that. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about is this, there's tons of great spin-out companies, tons of great startups in the UK, as we've seen today. How can the government, how can agencies like ARIA help get those companies from that stage to become the next DeepMind, to become the next, massive international healthcare unicorn, as it were? Chi, maybe you can start.
So that's a fantastic question, and it's something that that's been looked at, for the cliche that the UK is great at primary research and crap, basically, excuse the technical term, at commercializing it, is decades old. And we should recollect that we do have great successes. I mean, DeepMind is one of them, but we do have a rate of generation of startups and spin-outs that, as you say, is comparable with some of the great US universities, for example. Where we do seem to fail is in that scale-up space. And my committee, we're looking at specifically regional innovation and growth, but a lot of the issues, in fact, they're worse, if you like, outside of London and Cambridge and Oxford, in terms of access to capital, in terms of talent. So we've got great scientific talent, but we don't necessarily always be able to ally that with great management and commercial growth talent. What you often see in, say, in the US, and only particular parts of the US. I mean, the US is often held as an example, but we're basically talking about a bit of the West Coast, a bit of the East Coast, and maybe Colorado. But what you see there is a sort of concentration, which means that founders go from one company to another and then reinvest what they've learned and the finances that they've gained. So I think the government I know the government is looking at specific interventions around with the British Business Bank, the British Wealth Fund, and I suppose what may be the game changer, we shall have to see, is the consolidation of pension funds in order to make them more able to invest in more risky startups and scale-ups.
And on the ARIA side, it's great that you said that. I think our philosophy is kind of twofold. One, how can we build the most ambitious, impactful programs anywhere in the world? Okay, And what we're seeing is that we are activating absolutely the best talent in the UK. We're seeing new partnerships form between US and UK organisations. We're seeing people actually move to the UK so they can be part of our programs. And then in parallel, think about how do we create the environment where these technology can change the world. Very early on, we realized it wasn't enough just to fund teams and be done with it. So we started this program we called Activation Partners, where we looked for organizations to run alongside us. So we've got a number of top US deep tech VCs that are setting up shop in the UK to run programs with us. We've got the first ever neurotechnology accelerator, just a number of exciting things happening. So it's that kind of dual pincer attack that we're really going for.
And I think that raises a really important point. It's also part of talking it up, you know. I mean, the US centres tend to talk themselves up very, very well, and we always are talking about our barriers and challenges, etc. And, you know, we have got fantastic opportunities here and some fantastic, amazing companies, you know, and we should take a bit more pride in ourselves, you know.
Absolutely. It is the best place. It's not about how the UK can be the best place. It is the best place.
Chi, I really want to get your thoughts on ARIA, because I guess it's something that's maybe associated with your predecessors because of where it came from, but like, what's the Labour government's view on ARIA? And I'm sorry, Jack, you're here for this, but, you know, like, I'm really interested to know, like, what's the...
I mean, I was actually, as an opposition MP then, I was on the bill committee. We have committees which put ARIA in place. And, and we are very supportive of ARIA. And we think there was a gap, if you like, in the funding landscape. You know, we've got UKRI and Innovate UK, but we didn't have anything we didn't have something that was sort of focused on boundary breaking research and transformative opportunities. I mean, I do remember a very funny session where Dominic Cummings was drawing on a napkin, I think it was, how the sum total of human knowledge would be expanded, and I wasn't quite sure how that was going to relate directly to the £200 million a year funding and specific scale-up companies. But you know, where ARIA is now, and some of the work it's doing, some of the fantastic program managers it has, and I think particularly that you know, that working with partnerships, you know, to make a real difference. ARIA is focused on making transformative change, and God knows we need transformative change, and so we're very supportive of that. We're not necessarily of the view that it should just be left in a corner to get on with it. You know, I think it needs to be accountable, but I think you are being accountable.
A question on regulation, right? There's kind of two schools of innovation, right? There's this sort of Manhattan Project, DARPA, like chuck a bunch of government money at it, put a load of scientists in the desert somewhere, and they'll come up with world-changing things. Maybe not nuclear weapons, but something else.
Yes.
And then there's the kind of like, get out of the way, you know, remove all the regulation and let startups be startups. And I'm interested in, like, can you kind of do both at the same time? Like, what's the vision for the future of the UK health tech space?
Well, that's a fantastic sort of putting of the question, and I should make well, there's two things I have to confess or declare here. Is that you know, I'm not the government minister for science or innovation. My role is to scrutinise them, and also my last proper job, as my constituents call it, before coming into Parliament, was as head of technology for Ofcom, a regulator. And my view is, you know, having worked in that, worked in regulation and also in product development and in tech and in policy development, that you can have innovation supportive regulation. You can also have lots of bureaucratic sort of tick box regulation, and which doesn't support innovation, and that the real key to having one and not the other is to have expertise which is forward-looking and is focused on the environment as we have it. And so that's why I'm very, very supportive, and partially it was one of the ideas we set out in opposition, of the Regulatory Innovation Office, because when you have whatever new tech innovation you're looking at, the regulatory environment will not be designed for that because it's new by definition. And so you may find yourself looking at 10 different regulatory agencies. So the Regulatory Innovation Office is going to be there to, like, tear up the regulation that is sort of theoretically applicable but not in reality applicable, and try and guide a path through to the appropriate regulation. I think that is fantastic.
And just a very quick addition to that, I mean, 20 years ago, every neurotech company that you've heard of, a lot of it came from DARPA funding, and DARPA worked very closely with the FDA in really understanding how to regulate this emerging technology. There's huge amounts of room for that innovation and regulation.
10 seconds each on the optimistic vision for the future. Go.
Okay, so a vision for the future where tech is part of everybody's lives as it is now, but it's part of keeping everybody healthy and well, and British businesses of every size, and particularly mid and large size, are proactively and profitably really at the center of that.
I think we are at a turning point where how we think about the brain and how we treat the brain is going to change fundamentally in the next decade. I really do. And I think the UK has all the core components to be right at the center of that revolution. And the reason I get up every day is to understand and make sure that ARIA is the catalyst to do that.
Brilliant. I think we're just about out of time, but thank you so much to Jacques and to Chi for joining us for that panel. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you. Very fun. Thanks.